Good afternoon to everyone, and I'm deeply conscious of that it's slumber time for some people, so I hope not to wake too many up, but I might with some of the statements I would make, I think. Right, I head the unmanned operations vertical at Air Headquarters, so this is my core business. I will initially talk about concepts which are more important to me, which also I believe for you. For if you understand concepts, then the solutions are easier. In the end, I plan, if time is there, to talk about the technology solutions that I think are going to work. If time is not there, I'll compress that part. That's not so important. Right. When I got this topic, to me, the future of unmanned warfare is the topic. So when I broke it down, what I'm being asked is to talk about what is the role of a certain type of machine in warfare. Many people have tackled this bigger question: what is the role of machines in warfare? Right? These are just one type of machines. Some machines in history have proved more decisive than other machines. But by themselves, machines have not won wars. They haven't done it earlier. They're not doing it now. It's a combination of a lot of factors. The doctrine by which they are employed, the doctrine by which they are organized, and all of it differs. Examples: machine gun, World War I, against a doctrine of offense, it caused a carnage, static fronts, a lot of bloodbath. World War II, we saw tanks emerge and we saw aircraft emerge as dominant machines, which changed warfare substantially and results substantially. At the end of World War II, you suddenly had navies had transformed their entire doctrine from ships projecting power to aircraft-based navies projecting power. Aviation had come into its own. And thereafter, it's been a continuous spell of aviation effects, especially from 1991 onwards, the Gulf War I onwards. What we are seeing is a continuation. What I am trying to say is this big ticket statement, which I believe in: aviation is the real revolution that is happening right now over the last 100 years. Unmanned aerial systems are just one more manifestation of this bigger revolution or a paradigm shift that we are living through right now. People who live through revolutions don't recognize it. They are always recognized in hindsight. People living in the French, when Napoleon did his revolution of organization, people didn't think they were living in a revolution. It is only later that people talk about RMA that happened at that time. We are living in a revolution. This is a very fundamental statement because this informs what follows. Unmanned aerial systems are aircraft. Fundamentally, they are aircraft. They have wings, they have engines, they fly. This is again an important statement flowing from the first one, because they work as per they work best as per air doctrine. Right? A lot of this, the technology, it makes things easier, at least for me to foresee or anticipate. They're also best organized the way aerial systems are organized. There was a reason why air forces were born air forces were born very fast after aviation was born. If you see it, right? Wright brothers, 1903, and by 1918 you had your first air force. It's not happened with any other technology. So see it in that paradigm, and let's see what effect these machines will now have on warfare. Right? For warfare, they will do everything that manned aircraft to do. Every single thing. They're flying machines, and a bit more, and some things a bit differently. But essentially, they will perform every single role and mission that flying machines currently perform. And they're already starting to do it. This is very important to realize, because that is why I was using the word doctrine. So the doctrines of various air forces give names and labels to these roles, whether it is strike or ISR or electronic attack, or there are various air forces might differ in how they label them, but all of this is what these machines will do. How then do I differentiate or exploit the unique power of these machines? By understanding the complementarities between manned and unmanned aviation, right? We've done that in the Air Force, so we've got kind of 5 lenses through which we look at, okay, what should go unmanned first, or where should I put my energy to make something unmanned? If it's dull, if it does something that is dull, that is dirty, that is dangerous, which means reduces risk, does something that is impossible currently for manned aviation to do, or does it more efficiently. right? So it's a kind of acronym. There are boxes, there are lenses through which we evaluate the roles that aviation is currently doing. If it ticks one box, good. If it ticks 5 boxes, excellent. Make it unmanned straight away, right? But fundamentally, it must do the job that it is supposed to be doing. So I'll stop here, because then in each role you can go and explain what I'm talking about. So therefore, in the current context of another thing that is there is that this technology currently, if you see the historical pattern of how it's evolving, it is evolving much like manned aviation evolved from its early years. It's following similar patterns. Manned aviation first role was ISR. When that started to become very effective on the battlefield, they started to shoot down these manned aircraft, and that's how air defense was born. What's been the current maximum use of unmanned aviation? ISR. What's happening now, GSA also talked about it, shoot this down. Bombing followed. Special roles in manned aviation like electronic warfare followed. All of that has been done by unmanned. If you see Becca Valley, 1982, unmanned has done electronic warfare. What's happening now is a event called technological congruence. It's just one fancy term people use. Some technologies are converging to make some things happen. One of the biggest possibilities that unmanned gives is the fact that by taking the man out of the machine, it allows reduction of size. Right? It's a very fundamental statement. They're all flying machines, big ones, small ones. So therefore, it is those niche capabilities that these small machines do is where current leverage lies for unmanned. They're cheaper, they're simpler, they are weak against the current range of defenses which are optimized for larger machines. The moment you start making these machines larger, you start losing this advantage, and at big size, you will reach place where the cost and the complication exceeds and the efficiency exceeds manned aviation currently. Right? Understand this as a reality and understand its technological implications and your development implications. Right? So we've in line with our doctrine, we know it will do everything, but we are focusing very hard on where it will enable and complement manned aviation. Enable means, for example, if it is going to destroy enemy air defense and create the conditions of air superiority which manned aviation requires, then I can send the bulk of my massive combat power in. That's enabling operations. Complementing operations are, I'm sending, again, the bulk of my combat power lies in manned aviation. So if I'm sending it across, within it, I can have instantaneous ISR, I can have battle damage assessment, or things which can be done at lower risk. There are so many other missions where it will complement. So again, we are clear, we have our internal thought process and we are clear on this. Why I would like you to think about this is because then you can make niche machines which make this happen, niche technologies which make this happen if you are clearer rather than have to go with whatever the West might be inventing today. I'll give you an example. Again, I go back to history. Offense defense follows a curve for all forms of warfare, even for air warfare. So if you take manned aviation, sometimes offense is strong, sometimes defense is strong. To explain, World War I, offense was strong, you couldn't shoot those aircraft down, they couldn't do too much, but you couldn't shoot them down. World War II, defense started to rise up through flak and through air-to-air combat, and they kind of started to balance. Thereafter, offense became stronger and stronger and stronger. Somewhere in if you remember the Becca Valley, or you remember the Yom Kippur War, at that time, Russians invented, or Soviets invented air defense, ground-based air defense. For a second, for a little time, it stopped offense. The Israelis were shaken very badly by what the Egyptians did to them. That was the era where defense started to go up. By the Gulf War I, manned offense had reached a stage where the Americans destroyed that same Kari network of the Iraqis that was based on the Soviet network, or the French network, sorry. Right? Offense was strong again. Thereafter, you look at the Russian development of S-400, S-500. Defense is strong right now in manned aviation. Defense is stronger than offense. This will also break as stealth technologies multiply for manned offenses. I hope you can see the pattern I'm drawing. Offense, defense, right? Now, if you look at unmanned, as brought out earlier, offense is very strong. You can go even in conditions where you don't have air superiority and go and strike the enemy. He can't do anything. Defense is very weak. This is the complementarity I am talking about. So I can use the fact that defense against unmanned is weak to exploit operationally, however I may want to do it, and exploit technologically to invest in these kind of machines. I hope I'm not losing you by sounding a little obtuse, but this is how I see it. All right. Current strengths that this vertical gets to our table, like I just covered, it allows offense even in the absence of air superiority. One of the fundamental preconditions for manned aviation to operate, right? But it allows very low volume offense. So I'll differ in that it doesn't really give you mass. The amount of explosive today that can be delivered and the ranges to which it can be delivered is much lower by unmanned than it is by manned. When you want explosive, huge combat power, manned is king. Unmanned can do the job, but do it, it's like chota pataka. It doesn't give you those big bombs, right? Understand this. There is limits to what it can do, and there are strengths to what it can do. In fact, what it allows today, again because of the small size, is all manned missions become survivable in contested environments to a degree, primarily because defense is oriented towards the bigger machines, simply because of that, right? And that is also transient. But that is what it allows right now. So whether it is ISR, whether it is stand-in jamming, there are so many other missions that it does which man cannot do, primarily because of this size asymmetry and the current relative status of technologies, right? Or for example, in MUMTI, it makes sense to send an unmanned aircraft in front of a fighter because it will absorb the longer range missile of the enemy, right, at low cost to you. Or if it is small enough and can't be seen by enemy radar, get you a kill. All of these are related aspects. It's how you use this is where doctrine matters, and how you organize it. So where do we want these technologies to go? So how much time would I? 4 minutes? Right. My first, and GSR also covered this, because defensive technology is weak, I would urge the industry to focus on defensive technologies. If you make breakthroughs, it will, that is where you are going to sell. Everyone's doing offense. There's plenty of offense out there, right? And everyone's aping more and more offense because there is no defense to it. But whoever makes a breakthrough for defense is going to be king. And there are multiple technologies here. And GSR again covered this part. If you follow the pattern of manned aviation, just like there was ground-based air defense, which the Germans, for example, kind of pioneered in World War II, there was aerial combat kind of air defense, which the Brits did again in World War II in the Battle of Britain. Similar patterns will play out. Today's unmanned machines are simple single-role machines, but they will grow more complicated, complex, just like manned aviation machines. And they will reach a place of diminishing returns where the investment is not worth it. So right now, defensive technology, if you can make a breakthrough, great. Offense, there is lots happening, but there is enough out there. Already covered, networking is most important. Air forces have believed in this. We've been at networks for a long time. All our machines. So again, a fundamental belief, we do not separate manned from unmanned. To us, they are the same machines. It's just a matter of detail, the person is not there. Therefore, the networks that we operate in, there are ground networks like the ISCCS, like which rides the AFNet, there are airborne networks. These unmanned machines too have to join these networks. And it is a granted thing for us that there will be manned unmanned networks and there will be unmanned networks. It has to happen, and we will actively push towards this. This will require supporting technologies, common protocols of communication, where one manufacturer's bird can talk to another manufacturer's bird. Data frugality will also be required. These machines are hugely, there are many negatives to unmanned systems. They suck data, both in transmission of what they see, for example, and in terms of controls. It's like an umbilical cord. It's a big weakness. So this, if you work on less data, more output, it's going to work better for you. Secure communications has already been mentioned. Long distance communication is a weakness. People have to rely on SATCOMs. So if you have a solution, it would be great. I don't see one right now. Satellite communication will itself become a center of gravity for long unmanned systems. And this is why the next three technologies which are linked are going to be crucial. Already mentioned before me. Autonomy, swarming, and artificial intelligence, and then swarming. All three are related. Autonomy is a given. Whether it is a manned, unmanned teaming or I don't have enough workload in the fighter cockpit to do my flying and the unmanned guys flying. I will have to give mission subsets to that unmanned aircraft. So autonomy will be required there. Swarming will require autonomy. Autonomy by itself will require intelligence. That intelligence will come from AI. So these are linked. I would love it if somebody invented a pilot who is autonomous. This is something that again will happen in the future. There are some companies in the West that are working on it. There's nobody working on it here. What worries me more is that nobody is working also on, everyone seems to be working on unmanned aerial machines and nobody is working on unmanned ground machines becoming or robots becoming autonomous or even ships. You know, there is less work happening there. Everybody is kind of homed on to, or maybe it's to support my point that you know, it's the unmanned, it's the aviation revolution, so everyone wants that technology, right? This one-way attack UAS is fundamentally wasteful. Why should I waste an engine and an airframe when I could use it 10 times to deliver weapons? So this will also happen. There are very few companies working on delivering precision weapons. It makes more sense to me to use a UAS for 10 missions rather than lose it in one. That's where again, you make something, it will sell. I mean, we would buy it. Runway independence and mobile systems are what we are looking at. It allows it. We don't want to be dependent on runways anymore. And like I'll re-emphasize the fact that if you focus on small size in your design factors as a very conscious effort, it will pay more dividends than if you are wasteful on, it's okay, let's fit all this in, even if it goes big, it doesn't matter. No, it matters. If it goes big, it runs up against the air defenses which are made for those big things. And then it will no longer be cheap, it will no longer be survivable, and it will no longer sell. Right. So with that, I'll end with a few fancy terms. In the evolution of technology, there are some people who study this. There are fancy terms called technological determinism, social, which means all technology, it will go that way. Social constructivism, that means we construct technology. And there is one school which talks about technological momentum, that in the initial years of a technology, it is socially constructed, and in the later years, it gathers its own momentum, which I kind of makes more sense to me. What we are doing here is social constructivism. What most people, so we're in the formative years. These fundamental concepts matter, both uniformed people and industry and academia. We need not follow the West if we are able to think on our own of what these basic, there is no right way. But if we are able to think our way through, we will get good products. Thank you very much.
So thank you, EVM Ashish. I think if somebody was listening very, very carefully to him, he's actually articulated what is required. He's also given the direction. He's also given the doctrinal precepts. I'll just very quickly wrap it up for this thing, because the fuel, if time is fuel, the fuel of this unmanned system of panelists run out long time back. We're just gliding down. Very profound statements. I think many in Air Force will totally disagree with him when he makes a statement, just a machine in war fighting, but what he says that every role that a manned aircraft can perform, unmanned systems can perform, and a little bit more. And it's a very a profound statement, and thank you for so much for this. The second thing which he said is about that unmanned system will also follow the path of the evolution of Air Forces which have taken place over the past many decades. And in the last, which he's talked of, is giving out the doctrinal precepts, is that focus on defense. I think very few are working on defense, and that is where you need to break through. Follow the pattern of evolution of manned system, and if you can give him a pilot-proof system, I think he'll be very happy. Thank you so much, Ashish. Time is over. I just we'll leave it at that. We'll wrap up the session without asking any question, because we have to be edged out from here. It remains for me to thank my panelists, very articulate and very in brief time. They have summarized essential aspect of their respective subjects. And also I need to thank the Bharat Defence Tech Show and USI for this opportunity to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Exceptional panel on unmanned warfare. The future is autonomous, the future is intelligent, and increasingly the future is made in India. Now, ladies and gentlemen, India's defense manufacturing ecosystem is built on strong state partnership, and few states have embraced this vision with as much enthusiasm as Maharashtra. From aerospace hubs in Pune to electronics clusters in Nagpur, Maharashtra is becoming a powerhouse of defense production. We now invite the Government of Maharashtra delegation to share their vision, policies, and opportunities for defense investors and manufacturers. Please welcome our state partner session. And for the session, we have Shri Ajit Kumbhar, a 2015 batch IAS officer, currently serves as the Joint Chief Executive Officer at the Maharashtra Industrial Development Corporation, MIDC. He previously held significant administrative roles, including District Collector of Akola, CEO of Zilla Parishad Bid, and Joint Commissioner of BMC. In his tenure at MIDC, he oversees industrial development and investment facilitation for the Vidarbha and Nashik regions, covering major urban centers like Nagpur and Nashik. He has been instrumental in securing major investments, notably during the 2026 World Economic Forum in Davos. Mr. Kumbhar actively leads initiatives for infrastructure development and economic growth, contributing significantly to ease of doing business and Magnetic Maharashtra program. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Shri Ajit Kumbhar.
Thank you so much for this brief introduction of mine. Can we run? Good afternoon, everybody. It's my honor and privilege to be here at this Bharat Defence Tech Expo. On behalf of Government of Maharashtra, I'm addressing this session. So since morning, all of us have gone through a lot of defense terminologies where we have seen the defense modernization, self-reliance, Atmanirbharta in terms of realizing the defense procurement and defense production. But for all this to realize, we need maximum number of defense factories, maximum number of defense startups, maximum number of MSMEs, which will be contributing to the growth of indigenous production of the defense equipments. So here comes the state's role, which is very important, and Maharashtra being the pioneer of industrial development in country, Maharashtra acts as a powerhouse of Indian economy, and we are testament to the Indian growth story since last so many years. So how we are going to contribute for this self-reliance, Atmanirbhar Bharat in terms of defense technology, that I will be running through these slides. My presentation will be covering mainly 2 points. One is a general point where Maharashtra stands as the leader in economic growth and how we are providing different kinds of infrastructure for n number of industries and what we are doing for the defense sector. So as you can see that
At present, Maharashtra's economy is almost $530 billion, which is nearly 16% of India's GDP, and Maharashtra ranks as the first state. And as per the Honorable Prime Minister's vision to realize that till 2047 we will be the developed nation, Maharashtra has also set some goals for the Maharashtra economy. So by 2029, we are aiming to achieve the $1 trillion economy, and Maharashtra will be the first state in India to achieve this growth story. We are the largest contributor for the foreign direct investment in India. 30% of the FDI is coming to Maharashtra. Maharashtra's population, if you see, 70% of the population is employable. Nearly 7 lakh graduates are coming out of the colleges and the various educational institutions. 15% of the India's export is shared by the Maharashtra, 64% of the services and 24% of GCC. So you name it, Maharashtra is the leader. We have 30,000 plus startups, and lot of defense sector startups are also from the Maharashtra. So what is the vision for the Viksit Maharashtra? So by 2047, we have to achieve the goal of developed nation. So for that, Maharashtra is also aiming to double the economy in next 5 years. For that, we have articulated some roadmap for our industries. So ease of doing business is one of the thing where we have given a lot of opportunities at a single platform, single window system clearance. Cost of doing business in Maharashtra is one of the lowest. You compare it with other states, be it land premium, electricity rate, water rate, all rates, those are the minimum if you compare to other developed states in India. Industrialization contributes 12% of the gross value added products in Maharashtra's economy. And if you can see the growth story of the Maharashtra, mainly construction, auto, metals and fabrication, electronics and telecommunication, and contributing to the Maharashtra's growth story. And in terms of all these areas, Maharashtra's compound annual growth rate is more than what we can see of India. So what is Maharashtra's strength? Maharashtra's strength is infrastructure. So our infrastructure is spread across all of these districts of Maharashtra from Mumbai to Nagpur. So from all these areas, we are covering 300 plus Maharashtra Industrial Development Corporation estates, where we are providing dedicated industrial and manufacturing ecosystem for the companies, for the industrialists, for the factories, so they can run in a very safe and smooth manner without any hassle. So balanced industrialization is our aim. Traditional industries are also there. So we have identified some thrust sectors such as aerospace and defense, IT and ITES. Traditional sectors are like metals and chemicals are also there. Apart from this, emerging sectors such as EV, green energy, these are also our focused areas. So Maharashtra's MIDC, which is basically Industrial Development Corporation, is having more than 250,000 acres of land at our disposal, so that it can be allotted to different companies who are coming to us. So as I was discussing that since morning, we are pushing for some new technology, indigenous production of defense equipments. For all these factories, we need land. For all these factories, we need water, sustainable supply of electricity at a cheaper rate, skilled manpower, MSME ecosystem. All, if you compare all these parameters, Maharashtra will emerge as the #1 state. We have dedicated wine parks, floriculture parks. We have dedicated parks for the investment from the different countries such as Japan, Sweden. So Maharashtra's growth is infrastructure-led growth. We have the 6,200 plus kilometers of railway network, 18 national highways we have. Apart from this, 2 major ports we are having, and 53 minor ports, 4 international and 7 domestic airports in Maharashtra. So all these areas cater to Maharashtra's need in terms of the supply, logistics and everything. Recently, Honorable Prime Minister also inaugurated New Mumbai International Airport, and in next 3 years there will be another port which will be handling the largest container traffic in India, that is Vadhavan port. So all these ecosystem is needed for the defense manufacturing units. So Maharashtra is already on the way to establish all this ecosystem. These are our industrial growth areas where you can see, apart from Mumbai, Pune, Nashik, Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, Nagpur, these are the areas where we are focusing on the industrial development, and we have conceptualized 3 industrial corridors where dedicated defense corridors will be established in next 2 to 3 years. Apart from this, major advantage of Maharashtra is coastal infrastructure, where we can see that 720 kilometers of coastline is there, and we handle 40% of India's cargo. So if you compare this with other states, Maharashtra is distantly ahead compared to other states. So if we come to the defense and aerospace, what we are offering. At present, India's defense sector output is around 2.3 lakh crore, out of which nearly 40% is from the Maharashtra state. Defense production is around 1.27 lakh crore. India ranks 3rd in terms of market size of aviation and 4th in terms of global military expenditure. But at this moment, India is the 2nd largest importer of defense equipments. So if we want to be self-reliable, if we want to be Atmanirbhar, then we have to augment the defense ecosystem where we will be supporting to our MSMEs, to our factories where they are into production and the research and development of the defense sector. So Maharashtra's defense and aerospace capabilities, if we see, then in year 2024, around 60.6 lakh crore industrial output was from the Maharashtra only, and it contributes to the 1.7% of Maharashtra's value addition to the GSDP. We have 10 ordnance factories and 21% share of India's aircraft, mainly because of Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. And in terms of skilled manpower, we have n number of institutions which are working in the field of aerospace and defense, such as 4 institutions in the field of Air Force, Defense and Research, such as College of Military Engineering. Investment announced in 2025, if you look at the figures of the Davos 2025, then out of 20 lakh crore rupees MOU signed by the Maharashtra state, nearly 70,000 crore rupees MOUs were from the defense and the aerospace sector, mainly Solar Defense, Paras Defense, L&T Defense. All these companies, they have committed for the to set up good quality manufacturing sites in Maharashtra. If you compare with the other states, if you see the 2024 gross state domestic product, Maharashtra is 26% and second is Tamil Nadu, which is 17%. These are the existing value chains which are operating from the state of Maharashtra. So we have already good number of anchor units, and we have the policy to promote the anchor units. We are giving some sort of concession in land premium, water rates, electricity rates, and the capital subsidy, just to incentivize the new startups and the MSME as well. We have companies like Bharat Electronics, HAL, BrahMos, Boeing, Tata Advanced Systems. These are the companies which are operating from the Maharashtra. There are 10 number of ordnance factories spread across Maharashtra. This is the proposed Raksha corridor. So, what is the need of dedicated Raksha corridor? So, as per the Honorable Prime Minister's vision to establish a self-reliant and Atmanirbhar Bharat in terms of defense manufacturing. We have to have a system where we will be promoting the new age technology, new age innovation in defense and aerospace. For that, we are creating these Raksha corridors mainly at Mumbai, Pune, Nashik, Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, and third one will be at Nagpur. So based on the categorization, we offer land premiums concession up to 50%, then 50% capital subsidy, R&D capital subsidy. Based on all these packages, we offer some package scheme of incentives where a company which will be coming to Nagpur will be having advantage over the company which is coming to the Pune. So we want to establish a uniformity in a regional spread and the economic growth as well. So our target for 2030 is a defense production to achieve 60,000 crore rupees and aerospace production to 20,000 crore rupees. So for this, we have already existing ecosystem. Our Honorable Chief Minister, our Honorable Prime Minister, with their support, Maharashtra Industrial Development Corporation, Industry Department has devised the existing defense and aerospace policy, and we are into revision of this policy which will be launched in 2026. So Maharashtra will be the first state to launch a separate defense and aerospace policy where we will be promoting the startups in defense and aerospace innovation, and those anchor units which will be coming to Maharashtra, they will be getting good benefits. So I welcome all of you, those who are coming from the industry background, those who are coming from the defense background. Maharashtra is always there to support the Honorable Prime Minister's dream of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, India's rise as a defense power is from our strategic partnership. But let's move on. But before we move on, we have Mohit sir with us to felicitate the government of Maharashtra. Guys, you can put your hands together. Yeah, this energy, I mean, it has to keep on flowing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, India's rise as a defense power is inseparable from our strategic partnership. From joint exercises to technology transfers, from co-development to co-production, India is no longer seeking handouts. We are offering partnerships of equal. And few voices understand this transformation better than our next speaker. He served as the chief coordinator for India's G20 presidency in 2023 and was ambassador to the USA, Bangladesh and Thailand. He played a critical role in Operation Vande Bharat and Operation Ganga, repatriating citizens during global crisis. An alumnus of St. Stephen's College and Columbia University, he is the founder of Darjeeling Welfare Society and has received numerous awards, including the Lifetime Achievement Award from Jaipur Food. A distinguished diplomat, a strategic thinker, a member of parliament who has represented India on the world stage with grace and authority. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Shri Harshvardhan Shringla, Honorable Member of Parliament and former Foreign Secretary of India.
Distinguished invitees, dear friends, Namaskar and good evening. Let me begin by saying what a pleasure it is to be part of the Bharat Defence Tech Show 2026. I want to congratulate the organizers, especially Mayank Harlanka ji, for single-handedly putting the show together. General Dhingra, of course, very experienced member of our armed forces who has served as a defense attaché in Washington, D.C., and with whom I've had the pleasure of interacting during my service as well. Let me begin by saying that we all have a certain, goal which is very important for our country, which is a Viksit Bharat 2047. And we would like to see India as a developed and secure country within this frame of time. We have a stated ambition to be a third pole in the global order, which demands a state-of-art armed forces capable of ensuring absolute strategic autonomy in safeguarding our national interests. And when we look at that, I think it is important to understand where we stand in geopolitical terms. This session that we are part of is called the subject is a defense dialogue, diplomatic dialogue, building defense partnerships. And I'm sure we have some very eminent panelists who are part of this session. I see my esteemed colleague, Ambassador Devnath Shaw, who has been a Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Defense. He's been our ambassador to several countries, brings a great amount of experience in defense diplomacy to this forum that we are part of. And I think between some of our panelists, myself, will try and share our perspectives on this very important subject. To understand the subject, of course, all of us must look at the current geopolitical dynamics. We are all following the news, so we can all safely assume that, geopolitically the world is in a state of flux. As someone said, the only certainty is uncertainty. You have a situation where the global order that we are familiar with, which is really based on the institutions which were established post-Second World War, like the United Nations, the Bretton Woods institutions, the WTO, are today all in many senses anachronistic, not able to carry their weight to meet the challenges of the 21st century. And most of the efforts to maintain international peace and security are really today handled at a unilateral, bilateral, but not multilateral level. And in that sense, I think the entire concept of a rules-based international order today is called into question. And in that scenario, we have to examine our own defense preparedness, our defense requirements, and how we can meet the challenges that will approach us in the next decade or two. And I think this is where we want to perhaps have some level of introspection. I can share with you that, when I first joined Parliament at the monsoon session last year, there was this debate on Op Sindoor. And I was fielded for that debate. And in that time, I did point out to our parliamentarians, I said that the, real credit has to go to, the members of our armed forces at all levels, who have within 3 to 4 days of the conflict with Pakistan has brought them to their knees and really brought them to a situation where they've had to sue for a ceasefire. And that is, I think, the important outcome of Op Sindoor. I also pointed out at that time that it was our indigenous weaponry, the Make in India model, whether it is the Akash or the BrahMos, that had been most successful, that it did most of the heavy lifting in this Op Sindoor conflict that we had. And this is also a testimony to the success of an Atmanirbhar policy in the defense sector, and something that we will continue to speak on as we go along. Now, of course, defense diplomacy is a key instrument in any any efforts that we have to secure advantages for our armed forces in the years to come. And how do we secure that? We do that through several levels of engagement, whether it is military to military contacts of that nature that was practiced by General Dhingra when he was military attaché in Washington, D.C., or it is joint exercises, it's training exercises, it's arms cooperation, strategic dialogues, or it is through, interoperability, as we call it, through which we advance our security cooperation with other nations. And India's approach to defense diplomacy has always been proactive and policy-driven. And of course, we have neighborhood first, we have Act East, we have mechanisms like the Quad, all of whom are designed to provide us with certain levels of partnerships and advantages that are important. From my point of view, I think what is very, very critical is that how can we use our trusted partnerships, the synergies that we establish with countries that we can, I think, rely upon to get the best that we need in terms of technology, equipment, know-how, also intelligence, whether it is satellite, whether it is other forms of intelligence, any possible advantage that we could garner from the external scenario is something that is important. But at the end of the day, what does the changing geopolitical scenario teach us is that we can only rely on one, and that is ourselves. I mean, we have to be clear that in today's situation where friend and foe are not very clear, as we understood it in traditional terms, we have to really go back to being self-sufficient, being Atmanirbhar, and developing capacities that enable us to ensure that our armed forces have the best equipment which we can use through our own indigenous technologies, through our own production bases, and that should be our objective as we move along to, as I said, our goal of 2047. And I think this is what is important, is that we envisage an India that is secure at home, a net security provider abroad, embedded in the network of like-minded partners. And this is integral to the vision of a developed, confident India at 100. In practical terms, our roadmap entails a few key thrusts: developing an indigenous defense industrial base, transitioning from a buyer-seller relationship to co-innovation and co-production partnerships, using defense cooperation to access advanced technologies, and building, as I said, interoperability and trust through training and exercises. Each of these elements reinforces our autonomy while contributing to global peace and stability. Let me come down to the concept of co-innovation and co-production. So for far too long, our defense imports were characterized by straightforward procurements. We were a buyer of arms, a largely transactional relationship with foreign suppliers. While that addressed immediate needs, it often left us very dependent on external sources. There are so many examples in our recent past where we have had to face supply constraints, where countries have been able to leverage supply chains to arm twist us into agreeing to certain, I would say, compromises which we shouldn't have. I think there are enough instances where we have had to compromise on military objectives, on, let's say, settlements that have been post-military conflicts, which should have gone our way. Let me take the example of 1971, where our armed forces inflicted a decisive, absolutely decisive defeat on Pakistan. 93,000 Pakistani prisoners of war were in India. Yet, in the Simla Accord, we got nothing in return. We gave away territory that we had conquered, or we had captured. We handed over 93,000 prisoners of war from Pakistan, many of whom were wanted for egregious war crimes and human rights violations. And I think in that sense, we have let our side down. But some of this, needless to say, is because of arm twisting that have taken place, because we were dependent on others. What it boils down to today is dependency should be minimal. We must develop our own capabilities and capacities that enable us to take on the challenges that we face. It does not mean that we don't have partnerships. I think partnerships, as I said right at the beginning, are very important. Alliances, multiple alignments, as we call it, with a series of important and trusted partners is important. But I think at the end of the day, we have to be self-dependent and develop our own capacities to the extent that we can. Under Prime Minister Modi's leadership, we have resolved to change this current model fundamentally. Government has launched policies to promote indigenous manufacturing and insisted on technology transfer and local production in many of our large contracts. In a recent, not the one that I made for Op Sindoor, but subsequently on a discussion on the privatization of our nuclear energy sector, the opposition was very, very vociferous on this issue of private sector participation. And I said, look, the defense industry is a prime example where private sector participation has made the vital difference in the way we handle things. In 2014, when Prime Minister Modi came to office, we were reliant on imports of our defense equipment for 75% of our requirements. Today, 65% of our defense requirements are produced indigenously, and it is a Make in India effort. And that, I think, is a significant achievement and contribution to our, let's say, defense capabilities and our independence of policy and actions that this fosters for us. And I hope you're understanding the link I'm making between, our capacity to develop our indigenous production and equipment, and at the same time, the outcomes that we seek in any conflict that we enter into or any situation that arises as a result of that. I think this is very important linkage between the two. And of course, to illustrate that point, I would say that in our latest budget 26-27, which is still under discussion in Parliament, 75% of our defense capital procurement budget has been earmarked for domestic industry, encouraging foreign OEMs to partner with Indian firms and set up production here. Our intent is clear. We seek partners, not just vendors. Indeed, many past defense collaborations were also limited to licensed production of basic technology, but now we want to change. The concept of co-development and co-partnership or co-production came up and it actually caught my attention when I looked at the joint statement that was issued after the Prime Minister's visit to the United States in February last year, where soon after President Trump took over for his second term of office. And at that time, I saw that many of the items that were listed in the joint statement for the defense industry were based on co-production and co-development. In other words, we develop the product together, we produce it together. And these included advanced UAVs, included Stryker vehicles, included underwater sonar equipment. As someone who has been in the United States, this is something that we have been pursuing for a long time. For the first time, I see that not only the United States is willing to offer this to us, but offer this to us at a significant co-development and co-production basis. They have also offered the F-35 aircraft, which is a fifth-generation aircraft. It is another thing whether, as to what aircraft we finally go in for in terms of fifth generation. We are developing our own capacities. But the fact is that the United States has for the first time offered a state-of-art equipment to us on a co-production, co-development basis. And this is the importance of co-production and co-development. Of course, this term is not new to us, because if you look at our other partnerships, look at the case of Russia, we have been co-developing and co-producing Russian equipment for a long time. Whether it is tanks, artillery, whether it is, aircraft, we have been working with the Russians for a long period of time. And even today, about 60% of our platforms come from Russian equipment, which is being produced in India or being purchased, in part or whole from Russia. And a good example of that is the BrahMos supersonic cruise missile, which is a joint development, an Indo-Russian venture that was started in 1988 and has yielded a world-class weaponry system, which, as I said, has been pivotal in ensuring that we had a decisive advantage over Pakistan in the recent Op Sindoor conflict. And not only that I think this is something that is today sought after across the world. We have been able to sign a $375 million deal with the Philippines to purchase the BrahMos. There are many other countries who are interested in this BrahMos platform, but this hypersonic missile is something that I think is very unique and will certainly, find a lot of interest from our partners, not in terms of offering us something, but in terms of getting from us this important piece of equipment. France is another important partner, a critical partner, offering extensive technology sharing. We had just approved the acquisition of 114 Rafale fighter jets from France, and notably, most of these will be manufactured in India. Alongside Rafale, India's proposed $10 billion deal with Germany for the acquisition of new submarines under a unique strategic partnership model is also very important. Rather than a simple off-the-shelf purchase, we are looking at joint work that builds domestic manufacturing capacity and reduces long-term dependencies. And of course, we have other partners like Israel that provide us with very, very important components, but increasingly, as I said, we are looking at a model which is different, a model that enables us to manufacture, I would say, state-of-the-art equipment within India. And a good example of that also is the medium-range transport aircraft that we're looking for the defense industry. There are already a range of buyers, a range of partners from the United States to Brazil to the European Union who are offering this platform, which in many senses are based on a complete shifting of assembly lines into India. India will manufacture the product, India will use it indigenously, but it will also export that model to countries across the world. So this is the change that we see, and of course the fruits of this approach are already visible in our growing defense exports. So this is also very important. As I said, our exports, as a result of Make in India, have been very, very significant. And a decade ago, our exports were negligible, around 686 crores if you look at 2013-14. But thanks to policy impetus and partnership-driven production, exports have risen nearly 30-fold, and exceeding 23,000 crores in 2025. So this is very, very significant. Indian-made systems from radars and patrol vessels to artillery and missiles are now finding markets in Asia, Africa, and even developed countries. Government has set an ambitious target of reaching $55 billion in defense exports by 2029, just 3 years from now, and ultimately joining the ranks of the top exporters of defense equipment in the world. So, just to conclude, because I know that our panelists are very, very experienced, they have a lot to say. We clearly have a lot to gain from their experience. I just want to make one point, is that I did mention in the beginning that our armed forces, especially our Navy, has now been seen in our region as the first responders and net security providers in the region. So if there is a sort of a natural calamity in Banda Aceh in Indonesia, or there is a crisis in Mozambique, our armed forces are the first to go there, not in any combat role, but on a humanitarian mission to provide support and assistance. I recall that during the COVID period, when many countries in the Indian Ocean region did not have the capacity to deal with the crisis, our armed forces spent rapid response teams to countries like Kuwait. When I was in Kuwait with the parliamentary delegation after Op Sindoor, and there was this big meeting with very, very influential people in Kuwait, many people recalled that when we needed help most, India was there. Your doctors, your nurses from the armed forces were there to help us develop systems that could to enable us to combat the challenge of the COVID pandemic. Similarly, under Operation Sagar, our naval ships went to Mozambique, Seychelles, Madagascar, Mauritius, countries across the Western Indian Ocean offering assistance. So when we talk about the Quad and we talk about the Indo-Pacific, it was General Mattis, a good friend of mine, who said that defined the Indo-Pacific as ranging from Hollywood to Bollywood. But I think we take it one step further. We look at it as extending from the west coast of the United States to the east coast littoral of Africa. Africa is an important point in the Indo-Pacific from our perspective. And our efforts to provide support to countries within this Indo-Pacific region, I think, has held us in good stead. We have been seen across the global south as a country that is supportive in the times that is most needed. whether it's in COVID, whether it's in debt crisis in Sri Lanka, whether it is, a crisis where the ship catches fire, you run out of water like in the Maldives. Indian assistance is always around the corner. And that cannot be possible without the proactive presence and willingness of the armed forces to do what it takes. When our people had to be evacuated from Afghanistan, we ran this Operation Durga Shakti out of Tajikistan. The Air Force was there to provide that support constantly, ferrying people and ferrying goods from between Kabul and any Air Force base in Tajikistan. And I think these are examples where our armed forces have been at the forefront of bolstering our image as the voice of the global south, as a country that is dependable in times good and bad. So friends, our message is clear. As we strive for a Viksit Bharat 2047, we see defense diplomacy and global partnerships as indispensable pillars of our journey. We are moving from being reactive buyers in the international market to becoming an active collaborator and co-creator of security solutions. This transition supports our strategic autonomy, fuels our domestic development, and contributes to global stability. In closing, let us remember that the ultimate aim of our defense endeavors is peace and security for our people. India remains committed to a rules-based international order where differences are resolved through dialogue. Our defense diplomacy is fundamentally in support of that order, deterring conflict, building confidence, and forging valuable ties. I am confident that through diplomatic dialogue and global defense partnerships, we will pave the way not only to a Viksit Bharat 2047, but also a safer and more cooperative world in 2047 and beyond. Once again, our heartiest congratulations to the Bharat Defence Tech Show 2026, Mayankji, General Dhingra, everybody who's here, who's contributed to the show, and thank you for this opportunity. Namaskar, Jai Hind.
Thank you so much. Now I request Major General Ashok Dhingra ji to please come forward and felicitate respected sir. Thank you so much, Shri Shringla ji, for that masterful articulation of India's global defense strategy. And now we bring this vision to life through direct dialogue with the defense leaders from our partner nations. This is not just a discussion, this is a diplomacy in action. Chairing this session is Major General Dr. Pawan Anand, Director of the United Service Institution of India. Major General Dr. Pawan Anand is a highly decorated officer from the Corps of Engineers and a recipient of the President's Gold Medal. He currently serves as the Director of the USI Center for Emerging Technologies for Atmanirbhar Bharat. With the PhD focused on Indigenous India's defense industry, he is a recognized expert in PhD in cybersecurity and geostrategy. He has held senior international procurement roles and is a PhD guide at the University of Madras. He is the recipient of Ati Vishishta Seva Medal for his dedicated services for the forces. Thank you so much, sir. Please. And joining him on this prestigious panel are Shri Matthias Emil Bankston, in 2024 First Secretary, Trade Policy and Economic Affairs, Embassy of Denmark in India. He is the First Secretary in 2024 Special Advisor, Critical Technology, Office for Economic Security, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Denmark, Copenhagen. In 2022 Special Advisor, AI and Quantum Technologies at Invest in Denmark, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Denmark, Copenhagen. Please. 2020 Head of Health, Maritime and Defense, Embassy of Denmark in Indonesia. 2019, Political and Economic Corridor, Embassy of Denmark in India. Ladies and gentlemen, Shri Matthias Emil Bankstan. And now we have Major General Ashok Kumar Dhingra. Is a veteran with 36 years of services, noted for establishing the Tri-Services Special Forces Division. He commanded an infantry division on the Indochina border and served as the defense and military attaché to the USA from 2013 to 2016, where he focused on technology transfer and security cooperation. A former commander of the Parachute Brigade, he has extensive counter-insurgency experience and served as a UN military observer in Liberia. He holds an executive MBA and a PG in defense studies, offering deep insights into international partnerships and modern military strategy. And last but not the least, we have Shri Debnath Shaw, IFS, former High Commissioner to Tanzania. Shri Debnath Shaw joined the Indian Foreign Services in 1984, embarking on a distinguished career with diplomatic mission in Hong Kong, Beijing, Bonn, and Dhaka. A former visiting fellow at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, D.C. He served as Joint Secretary in both the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of External Affairs. His ambassadorial tenure includes serving as the Ambassador of India to Azerbaijan and the High Commissioner to Tanzania until his retirement in 2015. Post-retirement, he contributed as a consultant for the India-Africa Forum Summit, IAFS 3, and served as an advisor to WAPCOS Limited under the Ministry of Jal Shakti for 4 years. Currently, he is an author on diplomatic and security issues and a strategic consultant helping SMEs expand their international presence. Ladies and gentlemen, panel is all yours. Guys, let's put your hands together for the gentlemen who are present here. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have such an interesting panel with me. And after listening to what Shri Harsh Shringla had to say, I think this panel on a follow-up hopefully will add value to whatever we've been wanting to bring into when we talk about building global defense partnerships. For a long time, much in line with what Shri Shringla just said, the story of our defense industrial partnerships has been the language of transactions itself. It's all about buyers and sellers. It's all about contracts and deliveries. But defense usually is not only today about buying and selling. And if I may say so, India is no more now a customer, nor does it even seek to make others a mere customer. I think India seeks to have stakeholders together with it. India seeks that we should have a shared future with those who are like-minded partners with us. And for this, we are entering now from the old model of technology transfer to a new model of co-innovation, co-development, and co-production. For this, we should not differentiate between what we do with America, Europe, Russia, or Africa, or for that matter, any other country in the world, as long as the national interests are met and our partnerships are deep. Let us just say that our vision should be to create resilient supply chains, and these should be resilient by design. It is already visible in our partnerships now as we are creating these free trade agreements and deals with the European nations. We already have maritime surveillance networks. With Africans, we already have the peacekeeping missions, and also setting up our factories in African soil. You may have heard about how TASL has recently set up a factory for rolling out the wheeled armored platforms from Morocco. Indeed, we are now looking at India as a global distributed factory in the field of defense production. Another example for us is a landmark agreement that we have had with GE Aerospace and HAL, where we expect to have the 4 F404, 414 aircraft engines to be manufactured in India, notwithstanding the geopolitical standoffs that have taken place between us, and that despite signing contracts with the United States. We are also looking at European sensors through Saab's Giraffe radars. We are looking from Europe at naval systems, the Indo-French Scorpion class submarine upgrades, and we are looking at cyber resilience with the India-EU Trade and Technology Council, so that we have joint standards in 5G and 6G security and quantum computing to protect our critical infrastructure. The Indo-French roadmap is also envisioning co-designing heavy lift helicopters and advanced underwater drones. A number of these issues have been brought out during the course of the day today, but how closely are we going to take it forward with various countries is the moot question. Definitely, the war in Ukraine has also brought Europe's renewed focus onto defense, and the Rearmament Europe program is taking place in a big way. Just to quote a figure, by 2030, Europe hopes to spend 860 billion euros on rearming itself. And herein lies a huge opportunity, not only for Europe, but also for partners like India, who would actually be probably looking at each other with common interest. We have with us the First Secretary from the Danish Embassy here, and I would like to bring out a few things that we also do with Denmark. In fact, Denmark stands out as a specialized partner for India. Our green strategic partnership has been a benchmark in sustainability, and we are also now expanding into defense and security on the same terms. The Danish company Terma AS provides radar and command and control systems for our naval vessels, and future collaboration for autonomous underwater vehicles, improving India's shipbuilding capabilities, should be on the cards. As the Arctic theater hots up, we would also look towards the Danes when it comes to ice-class vessel design and polar communication systems, which will help Indian naval architects as well. And we could talk about this as the panel goes on. When it comes to counter-terrorism and green defense, we already have an exploratory exercise going on with Denmark. In fact, I would say that the niche technologies and expertise in high-tech subsystems which come from Denmark would go very well with India's scalable defense production capabilities. And the two would make an absolute perfect marriage to bring together capabilities across the globe. When it comes to the United States, we have a 10-year framework agreement that was just signed, a major defense partnership, and the follow-up Compact 2025, which was announced in Washington. So let us hope the jet engines begin to fructify, cybersecurity comes up, and advanced aerospace systems also get developed or co-developed as we thought. I think that exactly is the collaborative spirit of the Bharat Defence Tech Show that we are doing today. I would say it's the heartbeat of all our discussions that has taken place today. So it would suffice for me to say that by 2029, we are looking at defense production going up to 3 lakh crores and doubling our export, as was mentioned in the morning by the Vice Chief of Air Staff, from 23,500 crores to 50,000 crores over the next 5 years, 3 to 4 years, in fact, not even 5 years. I would say ultimately the Viksit Bharat dream of 2047 would envision a self-reliant manufacturing hub in India, but also India being a pioneer of critical niche technologies. So I look forward to the remarks and the discussion that we are going to have with the extremely experienced panelists along with me. So I will then ask each of the panelists now to give up their opening remarks, and then I would ask them a couple of questions. Once we are through with that, we would throw questions open to the House, and all of this we hope to complete in about 40 minutes or so from now. So I am now going to request the First Secretary from the Danish Embassy, Mr. Bengtsen, to come out with his opening remarks. Over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me here. I don't per se have like remarks, but I think there's a few things I would like to highlight from I say a Danish perspective, but also as a representative from the European Union in a sense. So I think this year has already been very important in the EU-India relations, and of course, I mean, as you all followed, we had our the whole leadership of the EU here recently. We signed a big FTA with India, which in itself is, of course, a significant and very important event. But I do think it also is important to mention this security and defense partnership that India and the EU also announced in the same summit. Because I think this really symbolizes also how the EU and India's relation is moving to an even closer and a more trusted direction. Because I think, as also the previous speaker was mentioning, of course, I mean, you had a traditionally maybe more other defense partners, and of course more focus on procuring maybe final technologies and products. While I think also in the EU's approach to this defense partnership, there is a lot of focus on industrial cooperation and how we also can support India's ambitions in terms of local production and technology transfer and so forth. So I think it's very important to remember this part of the EU-India partnership. And I think it's also very important that I think India has started to look at EU also as sort of a important player in itself, and not just as a lot of countries where you have bilateral relationships with. So I think that's something we're very welcoming from a Danish side. I mean, Denmark is not one of the big defense industry nations, of course. As mentioned, of course, we have companies like Therma that's very strong in radars. I think in general you would say that Denmark in defense industry is more on the high-tech and niche technologies. So it could be like radars, drones, some of these like you mentioned also quantum technologies. Many of these maybe dual-use areas is where we are really strong. And I think that also where you can find some interesting sort of innovation, collaboration, and technology partnerships with Denmark. We're never going to be the ones who are going to build big submarines together with India, of course, or some of the other things you mentioned that our neighboring countries are very strong in. But I think there are some niche areas where we really have the potential to explore further. And that's also why we think that this industrial defense industry partnership will be an important part of our relationship with India going forward. As was mentioned, we have a Green Strategic Partnership. And now we are looking into upgrading that to a comprehensive Green Strategic Partnership, where we will also exactly look into working together in more trust-based areas such as critical technologies and defense and security. So I think that is something that is very important for bringing our relationship to the next level. As you all know, of course, when you are really becoming close, that's when you start working on these more sensitive areas and these more trusted areas. So I think that's something we are looking forward to. I think Denmark being a very strong maritime nation, one of the areas that's also very interesting to look into is the naval side. As you probably know, I mean, Denmark is famous for being like a shipping nation. We have Maersk, one of the biggest container shipping lines in the world, and a lot of maritime technology providers who are, of course, delivering or offering their technologies to the commercial shipping sector, but there's also many of them who are actually supplying to naval vessels as well, also here in India, many of those companies that are here. So I think that's an area where we could see even more stronger collaboration, and many of these companies are already making in India. So I would say in general, I think most of the Danish companies are very committed to joint ventures and to supporting Make in India. I mean, Therma, as you mentioned, is also having local partners here and increasing localization. So that is definitely a focus area. I think on the political side, of course, you also have maritime security as an important focus. We are establishing a maritime security dialogue also with India, because of course, as two nations where you know, freedom of navigation and sort of the protection of a rule-based order at sea is very important. This is also something where we see potential for strong collaboration. I think maybe I will stop here now, and then we can always discuss further later. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mr. Bengtsen. I'll change tack a little bit. I'll ask you a question right away so that you've got your mind working and you've got mine working too. So I don't want to drop the G word with you, but let me put it this way. Just 2 days back, or was it a day back, Mr. Mark Rubio was there in the Munich Security Conference, and he started a form of a charm offensive with Europe, talking about historical ties and how the US is a child of Europe, so to say, and that remark went very well with everybody there in the room, and he got an ovation for it. But looking at it the other way, I mean, the pressure that has come on to Denmark from the United States was actually highlighted by both PM Frederiksen as well as the PM of Greenland, when they said that the last threat that we thought that would come to Greenland, that it would come from an ally and not from someone else, right? So I think that factor of trust perhaps will take some time to come back, to put it mildly. But my question is, today the US would be wanting to sell the F-35 aircrafts, let's say, to the European Union or even to India. How far do you think that rearmament Europe, as it goes forward, would like to be completely independent in the way it goes forward with its defense production? And what are the other partners that Europe would be looking for?
Hello? Okay, good, it's working, yes. Oh, okay, yeah, that's of course a little bit of a sensitive area you're touching on. I mean, the US, of course, is still our main security partner. I mean, the F-35 program, we have Danish suppliers who are part of this as well. It's been one of the driving forces also behind companies like Therma growing. So, of course, we are still procuring things from the US. I think recently we just signed a rather large deal again with a US arms